The 30-minute rest period passed like seconds in Jake's enhanced state of focus. Around the arena, automated systems had finished cleaning the sand and preparing for the second trial. The massive displays now showed odds of 23-1 against his survival, a dramatic shift that had sent shockwaves through the galactic betting networks. Master Thane's voice echoed across the arena through hidden speakers, carrying the weight of ancient ceremony. Warrior Morrison of Terra, you have survived the first trial by defeating the Silthery Razorhound. The second trial brings forth a creature of legend, the Vorthak Shadow Weaver, master of illusion and psychological warfare. Jake stood and checked his equipment one final time. His research had identified the Shadow Weaver as particularly dangerous because it didn't rely solely on physical strength. The creature was a master manipulator, capable of projecting false images and preying on its victims' deepest fears. It had driven 12 warriors insane before killing them, their minds shattered by visions of their worst nightmares made manifest. The arena lights dimmed to a twilight gloom as environmental systems shifted to accommodate the Shadow Weaver's preferred hunting conditions. From multiple tunnels around the arena's perimeter came a low, humming sound that seemed to resonate in Jake's chest cavity. The creature's first psychological attack had begun before it even showed itself. Jake closed his eyes and regulated his breathing, drawing on techniques learned during SEER training. He had been broken down and rebuilt by experts in psychological warfare, taught to recognize and resist mental manipulation. The humming sound was designed to create anxiety and disorientation, but Jake used it as a focal point for meditation instead. When he opened his eyes, the arena had transformed. Instead of blood-stained sand, he appeared to be standing in his childhood home in Nebraska, surrounded by family photos and the smell of his mother's cooking. The illusion was perfect down to the smallest details, the creaky floorboard by the kitchen door, the way afternoon sunlight slanted through the living room windows. Very impressive, Jake said aloud, his voice carrying in the false environment. But you made one mistake. The illusion flickered slightly, as if the creature was surprised by his calm response. My mother died when I was 12, Jake continued, drawing his sidearm. I've never smelled her cooking since then. And my childhood home burned down 15 years ago. Jake fired 3 shots into the air above where the kitchen should be. The bullet struck something solid despite hitting empty space in the illusion, and a shriek of pain echoed from an invisible source. The false home wavered and began to dissolve. Revealing the true arena beneath, the Vorthak Shadow Weaver materialized 20 feet in front of him, its camouflage failing as pain disrupted its concentration. The creature was unlike anything in Earth's fossil record, a writhing mass of tentacles, surrounding a central brain case that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Multiple eyes on flexible stalks tracked Jake's movements while its damaged appendage leaked a silvery fluid onto the sand, but Jake was already moving before the creature fully materialized. His SEAL training had taught him that the best response to psychological warfare was immediate, overwhelming violence. He charged directly at the Shadow Weaver, combat knife in one hand and sidearm in the other. The creature's panic was evident in the chaotic illusions that began flickering around the arena. Jake found himself running through a battlefield cemetery, then a burning city, then the depths of an alien ocean. But he kept his eyes fixed on the real enemy, using peripheral vision and sound to navigate while the central part of his mind filtered out the false sensory input. The Shadow Weaver's next attack was more sophisticated instead of trying to fool Jake's senses. It attempted to access his memories directly. Suddenly, Jake was back in Afghanistan, watching his best friend Marcus die from an IED explosion. The guilt and rage from that day hit him like a physical blow, threatening to paralyze him with remembered trauma. For a moment, Jake's charge faltered as the memory overwhelmed him. The Shadow Weaver sensed victory and pressed its attack, diving deeper into his psyche to find every painful moment, every failure, every regret that had shaped him. But instead of breaking, Jake did something that confused the creature completely. He embraced the pain. Every fallen teammate, every mission that had gone wrong, every moment of doubt and fear became fuel for his determination. The Shadow Weaver found itself trying to weaponize the very experiences that had forged Jake into the warrior he had become. "Thank you," Jake said as he closed the final distance to his target. "I needed to remember why I'm here." His knife found the creature's brain case just as his sidearm delivered 3 rounds into its central nervous system. The Shadow Weaver's death scream was both audible and psychic, a final desperate attempt to shatter its killer's mind that instead washed over. Jake's reinforced mental defenses like water off steel. The creature's body hit the sand with a wet impact, its bioluminescent patterns fading to darkness. Around the arena, the illusions flickered and died, revealing the true environment once again. Jake stood over his fallen enemy, breathing heavily but unbroken in the viewing galleries. The silence had taken on a different quality. What had started as anticipation of entertainment had evolved into something approaching awe. Ambassador Vexhai found himself leaning forward despite his intention to remain aloof, all 4 arms gripping the rail of his viewing box. "How?" whispered Counselor Drakmore, a being whose species had lost 3 warriors to the Shadow Weaver over the centuries. "The psychological attack should have crippled him. No mind can resist the full force of induced trauma." Master Thane's scales had shifted to silver, a color reserved for the deepest respect. "The human did not resist the attacks," he observed quietly. "He integrated them, used his own pain as a weapon against the creature trying to exploit it." In the medical monitoring station, alien physicians studying Jake's vital signs were equally baffled. His stress responses had spiked during the psychological assault, but instead of the breakdown they expected, his readings showed increased focus and determination. It was as if the mental torture had made him stronger rather than weaker. Jake retrieved his spent brass and checked his equipment, maintaining the professional habits that had kept him alive through 2 decades of warfare. He could feel the weight of alien attention from the viewing galleries. But he had learned long ago to ignore external pressure during operations. The arena displays updated with new odds 4-1 against his survival of the remaining trials. For the first time since the trials began, some aliens were actually betting on the human. The galactic communication networks were buzzing with analysis and speculation about Earth's warrior culture. "Trial 3 will commence in 20 minutes, Master Thane announced. "The Carillion Flame Maw awaits." Jake sat down to begin his preparation routine, but this time his meditation was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. A section of the arena floor slid aside to reveal a lift platform carrying a figure he recognized from the intelligence. "Briefings, General Krexner of the Altaria Military Collective, a species known for producing some of the galaxy's finest soldiers." The general was an imposing figure even by alien standards, 9 feet tall with 4 arms and chitin armor that looked like it could stop tank rounds. His species had provided military advisors to the Galactic Council for 3 centuries, and his tactical expertise was legendary among the spacefaring races. "Human Morrison," General Krexner spoke through his translator. His natural clicking and buzzing converted to perfect English. "I request permission to address you before the next trial." Jake stood and nodded respectfully. Military courtesy transcended species barriers, and he recognized a fellow professional when he saw one. "Your performance in the first 2 trials has been unexpected," the general continued. "My tactical analysts are struggling to understand your combat doctrine. You move like prey, but fight like an apex predator. You appear vulnerable, but display capabilities that suggest extensive military conditioning. What's your question, General?" Jake asked directly. General Krexner's 4 arms gestured in what Jake's briefings had identified as a sign of respect among his species. "What manner of military produces warriors who can function at such efficiency while appearing so ... unremarkable?" Jake considered his answer carefully. This wasn't just casual conversation. The general was gathering intelligence about Earth's military capabilities on behalf of the Galactic Council. His response would influence how humanity was perceived by the galactic community for generations to come. "We call it asymmetric warfare," Jake finally replied. "When you're smaller and weaker than your enemies, you learn to use their assumptions against them. Every human military learns the same lesson. It's not about being the strongest. It's about being the most adaptable. Adaptable, the general repeated, his translator struggling with the nuance of the concept. When we were developing as a species, everything on our planet was trying to kill us, Jake explained. So we learned to observe, adapt, and overcome. We became very good at fighting things that were bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than we were. General Krexner's expression was unreadable behind his alien features, but Jake could see the wheels turning. The general was realizing that the transport ship's engines hummed their final notes as Commander Jake Reaper Morrison stepped onto the crystalline platform of the Galactic Arena station. His desert combat boots made soft clicks against the alien metal, the only human sound in a cacophony of alien languages that filled the massive docking bay. Towering beings with multiple eyes watched him pass, their conversations dying to whispers as they noticed the lone human walking among them. Jake had volunteered for this mission when every other species in the Galactic Council had refused. The arena of Kethmore was legendary across 1,000 worlds, a Colosseum, where the most dangerous creatures from every corner of the galaxy were brought to test warriors in combat. No single being had ever survived all 7 trials alone. Most species sent entire squads and still lost half their members. The human delegation had been mockingly invited to send a champion after Earth's recent admission to the Galactic Council. It was meant as an insult, a way to show the newer species their place in the cosmic hierarchy. The Zephyrian ambassador had laughed openly when presenting the challenge, his forearms gesturing dismissively. Perhaps your little death world produces something interesting, Ambassador Vexhai had sneered, his translator converting his clicking speech into perfect English. Though we doubt any single human could survive what awaits in the arena. Jake remembered the silence that had followed in the council chambers. Earth's representatives had looked uncomfortable, knowing they were being publicly humiliated. That's when Jake had stood up from the observer gallery and spoken. 6 words that would echo across the galaxy. I'll take that bet. Bug Boy, now walking through the station's corridors toward the arena preparation chambers. Jake felt the familiar calm that came before a mission. 20 years as a Navy SEAL had taught him to find peace in the eye of the storm. His tactical vest held his standard loadout, nothing fancy, nothing that would violate the arena's ancient rules about natural weapons and basic technology. The preparation chamber was a sterile white room, with a single bench and a wall display showing the arena's statistics. Jake sat down and began his pre-mission routine, checking his gear one final time. His combat knife was sharp enough to split atoms. His sidearm carried rounds designed to penetrate alien armor. But more importantly, he carried something no alien in the galaxy truly understood, the accumulated tactical knowledge and fighting spirit of humanity's greatest warriors. Soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. Jake looked up as the chamber door dissolved to reveal a figure he hadn't expected, Master Thane, the arena's ancient curator. The being looked like a cross between a dragon and a scholar, with scales that shifted color with his emotions and eyes that had witnessed 1,000 years of combat. Human warrior, Master Thane spoke directly, without need for a translator. His voice carried the weight of millennia. I have overseen this arena since before your species learned to make fire. I have seen warriors from races that conquered star systems, beings that could tear metal with their bare hands, creatures that could survive in the vacuum of space. Jake stood but didn't respond immediately, studying the ancient curator. In all my years, Master Thane continued, I have never had a single being request to face all 7 trials alone. The Krillian battle lords sent 50 warriors and only 12 survived. The Nixari war priests brought their entire battle coven and lost half their number. What makes you believe a lone human can succeed where entire armies have failed? Jake's response was simple and delivered with the quiet confidence that had earned him his nickname among his SEAL team. Because you've never fought a human before. Master Thane's scales shifted to a deep amber, indicating intrigue. Your species is young, small, fragile compared to the galaxy's apex predators. Your homeworld, while harsh, does not compare to the nightmare worlds that breed true killers. You're right, Jake agreed, surprising the ancient curator. We're not the biggest, strongest, or fastest. But there's something about humans you won't find in your database. And what is that? Jake smiled, and something in that expression made Master Thane take an unconscious step backward. We don't know when to quit. Every creature in your arena was born a predator. We had to earn it. The curator studied Jake for a long moment, his ancient eyes taking in details that most beings would miss. The way the human held himself, relaxed but ready to explode into action. The scars that spoke of countless battles survived. The steady heartbeat that suggested a mind completely at peace with the possibility of death. The first trial begins in 1 hour, Master Thane announced. The silvery Razorhound has killed 43 warriors across 2 centuries. It learns from every battle, adapts to every fighting style it encounters. Good, Jake replied, already visualizing the engagement. So do I? As Master Thane departed, Jake returned to his bench and closed his eyes. In his mind, he reviewed everything Earth's xenobiologists had learned about arena creatures from studying old broadcasts. The silvery Razorhound was a pack hunter evolved on a world where everything wanted to kill everything else. 8 feet tall, armored hide, retractable claws that could slice through titanium, an intelligence that approached sentience, but Jake had advantages the creature had never encountered. Human tactics developed through millions of years of hunting megafauna with inferior physical attributes. Strategies perfected in conflicts across Earth's most hostile environments. And something his SEAL instructors had drilled into him since day 1, the understanding that the most dangerous weapon in any fight was the mind. The hour passed quickly. Jake made his way to the arena entrance, where a massive circular platform would rise to carry him into the combat zone. Around the Colosseum's rim, he could see the viewing galleries filling with representatives from hundreds of species. The betting odds displayed on massive screens showed 847-1. Against his survival of even the first trial, Ambassador Vexhai sat in the primary viewing box, his forearms crossed in smugness. Beside him, other Galactic Council members chatted excitedly in their alien languages, already planning how they would use humanity's inevitable failure as evidence that Earth's membership should be reconsidered. Jake stepped onto the platform and felt it begin to rise. Above him, the arena floor came into view, a circular space 300 meters across, covered in sand that had been stained by the blood of countless warriors. The walls rose 50 meters on all sides, lined with energy barriers that would contain the combat. As the platform locked into place at arena level, Jake stepped onto the sand and immediately felt the weight of 100,000 alien eyes watching him. The silence was complete, no cheering, no encouragement, just the deadly quiet of spectators waiting for a gruesome show. A section of the arena wall began to iris open, revealing a tunnel that led into darkness. Jake drew his sidearm and moved to the center of the arena, positioning himself so he could see all approaches. The tactical part of his mind cataloged escape routes, improvised weapons from the scattered bones of previous victims, and the wind patterns that would affect any thrown objects. The silvery Razorhound emerged from the tunnel like a nightmare-given form. Its black scales reflected the arena lights in an oil-slick pattern, and its 6 legs carried it in a predatory prowl that spoke of absolute confidence. Yellow eyes fixed on Jake with an intelligence that was distinctly unsettling. This creature had studied human anatomy from previous broadcasts and knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage, for 30 seconds. Predator and human studied each other across the blood-stained sand. The Razorhound's head tilted slightly, processing this strange new prey that didn't flee or attack, but simply waited with impatience that confused its hunting instincts. Jake smiled again. That same expression that had unsettled Master Thane. "Come on, then. Boy," he called out, his voice carrying clearly in the silent arena. "Let's see what you've got." The Razorhound launched itself forward with explosive speed, closing the distance in heartbeats. Its claws extended to their full length, ready to disembowel the small human in a single swipe. But when it reached the spot where Jake had been standing, it found only empty air. Jake had moved at the last possible second, using the creature's momentum against it. As the Razorhound sailed past, Jake's combat knife found the gap between armored plates at the base of its neck. The blade slid home with surgical precision. Severing the nerve cluster that controlled the creature's rear legs, the razor hound crashed into the arena wall with bone-rattling force, its rear legs now useless. It spun to face Jake, yellow eyes burning with rage and confusion. No prey had ever moved like that, striking with such precision while appearing to be completely defenseless. "That's the thing about humans," Jake said conversationally, circling the wounded predator. "We've been the underdog in every fight for 3 million years. We've learned a few tricks." The creature lunged again, this time leading with its claws in a pattern designed to prevent evasion. Jake dropped into a combat roll that carried him directly under the attack, his knife finding another nerve cluster along the creature's belly. The razorhound's left front leg went dead, sending it crashing face first into the sand dot in the viewing galleries. Absolute silence reigned. Ambassador Vexhi's forearms had uncrossed, and as usual, the Carillion flame maw completed its assessment circle and stopped directly across the arena from Jake. For 30 seconds, predator and human studied each other across the superheated sand. The creature's glowing eyes showed an intelligence that was calculating distance, weapon capabilities, and probable human reaction speeds. This was no mindless beast. This was a thinking killer. Jake remained perfectly still, letting his opponent believe it was gathering useful intelligence. In reality, he was doing his own analysis. The flame maw's gait showed a slight favor to its left rear leg, suggesting an old injury. Its breathing pattern indicated excellent cardiovascular conditioning, but also revealed the rhythm of its attack cycle. Most importantly, its positioning showed that it thought like a human military tactician, controlling the high ground and maintaining maximum maneuverability. The creature's first attack came without warning. It launched itself across the arena in a blazing charge, mouth opening to reveal internal temperatures hot enough to melt titanium. But Jake had been watching its muscle tension and eye movement. He was already diving to the left. Before the creature committed to its attack vector, the flame maw's superheated breath carved a trench through the sand where Jake had been standing, turning silicate into glass. The creature landed where it had expected to find a burning corpse, found empty space, and spun to track its target's new position with impressive speed. Jake's first shots took the creature in the shoulder, penetrating its armored hide but failing to find anything immediately vital. The flame maw roared in pain and anger, but also in something that sounded disturbingly like approval. It was pleased that its opponent had provided genuine resistance. "You like a challenge, don't you?" Jake called out as he moved to a new position. "Good thing you found one." The creature's response was a tactical maneuver that would have made human generals proud. Instead of charging directly, it began using the arena's heat distortions and its own fire breath to create concealment, moving in short rushes between cover while maintaining pressure on Jake's position. Jake found himself genuinely impressed. The flame maw was fighting like a trained soldier rather than a wild animal. It understood suppressing fire, flanking maneuvers, and the value of controlling terrain. This was going to require his full attention. The dance continued for 5 minutes, with creature and human trading positions across the arena. The flame maw's tactical intelligence became more evident with each exchange. It was learning Jake's movement patterns, testing his reaction speeds, and probing for weaknesses in his defensive strategy. In the viewing galleries, military observers from a dozen species watched in fascination as two apex predators demonstrated tactical warfare at its highest level. General Krexner found himself making notes about human combat doctrine, while Ambassador Vexhi struggled to understand how a single being could match one of the galaxy's most feared creatures in strategic thinking. "They're not fighting," whispered Counselor Vexali, a member of the Valdorian Intelligence Corps. "They're teaching each other." Master Thane's scales had shifted to deep blue, indicating profound intellectual engagement. "In 900 years, I have never seen the flame maw encounter an opponent it considered worthy of respect. It typically kills within the first minute." The breakthrough came when Jake noticed the creature's pattern. The flame maw was using the same tactical doctrine against every opponent: establish fire superiority, control the engagement range, and gradually close distance for the killing blow. It was brilliant strategy. But it was also predictable once you understood the system. Jake deliberately broke his own pattern, moving into the open and apparently exposing himself to the creature's next fire attack. The flame maw took the bait, launching itself forward for what should have been the finishing move. But Jake's exposure had been calculated. He was standing precisely where the arena's automated medical sensors would create a brief blind spot in the creature's vision as the flame maw committed to its attack. Jake dropped flat and rolled directly toward his charging opponent. The creature's fire breath passed harmlessly over his head while Jake's combat knife found the gap in armored scales at the base of its throat, but the flame maw's tactical intelligence proved itself one final time. Even as Jake's blade found its mark, the creature twisted in midair to minimize the damage, accepting a crippling wound instead of a killing blow. Its massive claws raked across Jake's tactical vest, shredding Kevlar but missing flesh by millimeters. Both fighters hit the sand hard and rolled apart, each assessing damage. Jake's vest was ruined and his left shoulder burned from close contact with the creature's superheated hide, but he remained combat effective. The flame maw was bleeding heavily from its throat wound, but its eyes still showed the calculating intelligence that made it so dangerous. For a moment, they stared at each other across 5 feet of blood-stained sand. Then something unprecedented happened in the arena of Kethmore. The flame maw lowered its head in what could only be described as a bow. Jake understood immediately. The creature was acknowledging him as an equal, a worthy opponent who had earned its respect through skill and courage rather than mere luck or superior firepower. In its alien way, the flame maw was offering him the choice between continued combat and an honorable end to their duel. Jake slowly holstered his sidearm and sheathed his combat knife. "You fought well," he said quietly. "Better than any human I've ever faced." The flame maw's response was a low rumble that might have been approval. It touched its wounded throat with one massive claw, acknowledging that Jake could have killed it with that strike, but had chosen precision over devastation. Then, moving with careful dignity despite its injuries, the creature walked to the center of the arena and lay down on the sand. In the viewing galleries, absolute silence reigned. Ambassador Vexhigh's forearms hung slack at his sides as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. A human had not only defeated the flame maw, he had earned its respect and ended the fight through mutual understanding rather than simple violence. "Impossible," General Krexner whispered. "The flame maw has never acknowledged defeat. It fights to the death or not at all." Master Thane's voice carried clearly in the silent arena as he announced the unprecedented result. "Trial 3 is concluded. Warrior Morrison of Terra has achieved victory through combat excellence and diplomatic resolution." The implications rippled through the galactic observers immediately. Earth's representative hadn't just survived 3 trials. He had demonstrated tactical thinking, psychological resilience, and now diplomatic capability that suggested humanity possessed a completely different approach to conflict resolution. Jake walked to the wounded flame maw and knelt beside its massive head. The creature's eyes tracked his movements with cautious curiosity as Jake examined its throat wound. The bleeding was slowing, and the damage appeared to be painful but not life-threatening. "You're going to be fine," Jake told the creature softly. "That's a soldier's wound, not a killing blow. You'll have a scar to remember our dance." The flame maw's rumble sounded almost like laughter. It struggled to its feet and walked slowly toward the tunnel it had emerged from, pausing once to look back at Jake with what appeared to be approval before disappearing into the depths of the arena complex. Jake stood in the center of the arena as automated systems began preparing for the 4th trial. The betting odds had shifted again, now showing only 2-1 against his survival of all 7 trials. More significantly, the betting patterns showed that alien observers were beginning to wager on increasingly specific aspects of his performance rather than simple survival. Trials 4 through 7 will commence after a 30-minute rest period, Master Thane announced. Warrior Morrison has requested to address the assembly before continuing. Jake looked up at the viewing galleries, where hundreds of alien faces watched him with expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly through the arena's acoustic design. To the Galactic Council and all assembled observers, Jake began, his tone formal but confident. I want you to understand something about humanity before we continue. Ambassador Vexhai leaned forward despite himself, all four arms gripping his viewing box rail. What you've seen today isn't exceptional by human standards, Jake continued. Every military on Earth trains soldiers to perform at this level. We've been fighting creatures like your arena beasts for millions of years. We call them apex predators. And they taught us everything we know about warfare. The implications of Jake's words sent whispers through the alien assembly. He was claiming that Earth regularly produced warriors capable of matching the galaxy's most dangerous creatures in single combat. But more than that, Jake added, you've seen something else today. The Phlegm Maw and I didn't have to fight to the death. We found a way to honor each other's courage while ending a conflict through mutual respect. That's also very human. Jake paused to let that sink in before delivering his final message. So when Earth applies for full membership in the Galactic Council, remember this moment. Remember that humans can fight like devils when we have to, but we prefer to solve problems through understanding and cooperation. We're not here to conquer anyone. We're here to learn from you and maybe